emotions, feelings, moods. We all have them. The question is, are they leading you towards your desires and your dreams and your wishes and your goals? Or are they repelling against them? That's the question. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 77 of the Hangout with Penny Show, part 2 of the process of attraction with my dear friend, Brian Withers. So thank you for joining us again. And I'm excited for tonight's show. For one thing, I'm going to sit back and just learn from Brian. We are going to learn so much about how our emotions play the role in our life. So hopefully you'll come away with, oh my gosh, now I know. Now I know why things are working in my life, or maybe now I know why things are not, and now I know how I can correct it. So that's the intention of tonight's Hangout with Penny show. So thank you. My name is Penny Peddie. I live in Woodstock Beach, Ontario, Canada. Law of Attraction trainer and coach, health and wellness coach, among so many other things. But this is my passion. I love doing this, and I started these hangouts because I wanted to be able to share my knowledge of the law of attraction and help educate you and to inspire and uplift and have fun. And another thing is I like to share the wine of the week. And so this week, there's a significance to this wine this week, and I'm going to read that to you. So it's a naked grape, and it's a Cabernet Sauvignon. And so for all my friends that are having a glass with me tonight, cheers to you. I know many of you, this is a global show, so I know many of you watch from around the world. And right now it's Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. You're enjoying your coffee, your tea, or your water. So cheers to all you as well. Now, here's the significance of this wine. It's called Naked Grape. So why they call it Naked Grape, many wines are aged in oak. Well, this is just aged in stainless steel, so it gets the true essence of the flavor of the grapes. And so it says, naked grape wines reveal themselves as they really are, without being hidden by the flavor of oak. And when I read that, I thought, that's like our emotions. When something goes on in our life and we don't want to face it, we don't want to sit with Brian's going to talk all about this, but when we can't sit and face and just feel the emotions to go through them, we push them down, we push them down, we push them. So we're not really being who we really are. And many times we're labeled by our emotions. We do it to ourselves. So I just thought it was important to read that, and Brian's going to help us get through that. In the meantime, I'm just going to read what people were saying from last week, because I know Brian's got lots to talk about, so I'm going to give him the whole time. The show is typically 30 minutes. And so we're going to try and stick right to that. And, we might go over a little bit because the information I'm just going to share with us is very powerful. Right now, I'm just going to give a shout out to Linda Bedell. Oh, Linda, I wish I knew how to say your last name. She's from Montreal. She says, hello from Montreal, Penny and Brian. Looking forward to part 2. Well, thank you for being with us, Linda. We're excited you're with us as well. Tana Marshall, she's with us in spirit, as always. She shares... She has date nights with her husband on Friday night, so that's wonderful. So right now I'm just going to share a couple of comments from last week's part 1 on the process of attraction. And Monique Jackson, she says, oh, Brian, you have to help her out with this when I bring you back on the air. She says, I want Brian's book. Looking forward to part 2. This is Brian's book. This is what the conversation of last week's show was all about. And so that was episode 76 of the Hangout with Penny Show. Tony Marsh, she says, Penny, glad to join you and Brian tonight. And Brian's book is so helpful. It worked through lots for me. And she says, thanks for having him on the show. A great show. And I will miss the second episode, but will catch the video. Blessings. Yay, Tony. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to read one more, and that's from Valerie Romack. And she says, wow, Penny, this episode was awesome. Looking forward to next week. So, Valerie, this one's going to be good. This is for you. So, Brian, last week, my dear friend Brian I'm going to let him come back out, and he's going to reintroduce himself and tell you where he's from and what he does before we get on with the show. So, Brian, welcome.
Hello, Penny. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. So I'm Brian Withers. I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada, and I am a life coach, and I focus on personal empowerment using the concepts and of the law of attraction. And I am also the author, as Penny showed you the book, Higher Vibrations for Health, Happiness, and Harmony. It is it's a book that contains a 20-week program, and it's a program to show you how to take charge of your life using these laws of attraction and the related principles around energy. And so, yeah, and we talked about that last week, and we had a nice chat and talked about a number of those things around the book and whatnot. So this week we're going to have a little more of a focus on a particular process of attraction.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So before we get into that, Brian, where can people get your book?
The book is available on Amazon, and it is available at balboapress.com.
I'll try and put an annotation in the video after the show so people can watch the recording and get that. So that's
Awesome.
wonderful. Yeah. And so you mentioned about the processes in this book. It's really important because many times people will read a book and say, oh, this was a good book. Yeah, this was good. Put it down, and that's the end of it. They go back to their usual habits. And I was at a conference last week, and there's so many different, anyway, what am I trying to say? We have 60,000, 90,000. There's a difference of opinion on how many thoughts that we have per day, every day. The kicker is that 90% of those thoughts are the same ones over and over and over again. So if we don't change anything, if we don't change our thought patterns or our emotions or our moods, we're going to continue to create the same thing over and over and over again. So it's important that we do have exercises, like there's 20 weeks of exercises in this book that can change your life. But tonight, Brian, he's going to screen share with us, and he has an illustration where he's going to show us why some of the things that we want to show up in our life, whether it be relationship, career, anything, material things or otherwise, why we don't get them when we think we should. Where's our stuff? I'm doing everything right. Well, it has so much to do with our underlying vibration. So Brian, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so I will let you get your screen share going, and when it's ready, I'll bring it back out. So yeah, so I'm so excited about, there it is. Okay. Brian, it's all yours.
Okay, so you can see that okay, Penny?
I can see that perfectly. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so I just wanted to, before I start into the diagram, I just wanted to say, do you remember when you received your first paycheck, when you got that first job and you felt this sense of empowerment? All of a sudden you had some freedom, the ability to make some choices that before that first paycheck came, you weren't making. And, you know, that sort of was the power of money that sort of gave you that new sense of freedom and power. Well, as you go through life and you realize that, okay, well, there are some things that money can't buy. And that's where vibrational currency is much different than our money currency. Vibrational currency, you can have anything. There's nothing that you can't have if you use your vibrational currency effectively. And we all have it. So it's just a matter, and it's free to us. It's part of us. And in fact, we use it in every moment. And so if we can use it effectively, then we can use it to attract, as Penny mentioned, whether it's material wealth, a relationship, a new career, a house, a car, anything really. And so that's what we're going to sort of look at tonight through this diagram to help us and help me to explain this process of attraction and spending this vibrational currency.
Perfect.
So,
Brian, before you
okay.
continue, I like to acknowledge people as they come into the room and watch live. So Purple Rose, hi. She says hello to you from North Carolina, USA. So hi, Purple Rose, 1849. Happy to have you with us. So, okay, Brian?
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's look at this diagram sort of just generally to begin with, and then we'll kind of piece it together. So on the left side, you can see there's this emotional guidance scale, and that piece there comes from the teachings of Abraham, this scale going from the very top where you have joy and appreciation and freedom and love, very, very high vibration. And then right to the bottom where you get into fear, grief, depression, these are your very low vibrations. And this is, you may have heard this referred to as a guidance. Our emotions are actually a guidance system. And, what they tell us is they tell us about what we're thinking about. So if our thoughts are not in agreement with what we desire, then we get an emotion that tells us exactly where on the scale that we are, which is very helpful because then we can work our way back up the scale and get to that high vibration. Because as we go through this discussion, that's where all the good stuff starts to happen. That's where those things that you want to bring into your life, that's where it happens, when we can hold ourselves at that high vibration. And you can see just off to the left there, in that high vibration zone, that's where you experience, health and wellness. You experience fulfilling relationships, prosperity, career satisfaction, all the good things in life that you can think of. That's where it lives, at that high vibration. And at the lower area, anybody who has spent time in those lower vibrations or felt themselves in those lower vibrations, they tend to attract more of the dissatisfaction that we have in life. And so, what we want to do is move up the scale. And what's interesting is, this is a concept too in terms of the scale, is if you think of a high vibration as being on, let's say, the first floor, and you kind of just fell down, you fell off the balcony and you landed on the ground. Well, to get back up to that first floor, you don't really jump back up to the balcony. You got to go up step by step. So, if you're in a very low vibration, such as, let's say, insecurity or grief or, unworthiness, a lot of times what happens to people is they try to get up to joy and appreciation, very high vibrations, and it's a big jump. It's like kind of jumping up to that balcony, and it doesn't really work. You really need to go in a step-by-step approach, and we'll talk more about that as we go through here.
Well, yeah, Brian, so it's like getting up in the morning with $10 in your bank account. So we're looking at the guilt thing on the emotion scale, and wanting to get to $1 million, which would be joy. That's not going to happen if you win the lottery overnight, could be, but the reality is there's a process of getting even to the increase in your bank account, just like the process in getting to the higher emotions, the higher vibrations.
Yeah, and that's a great example, Penny, because you're right. If you're $100,000 in debt, you can at a point reach $100,000 in your savings account. But as you say, Penny, sure, there's winning of lotteries and things like that, but generally there's a process that you can turn things around to attract different circumstances, and you can get to that $100,000. But when you try to do it overnight, then a lot of times people get frustrated and think the process is not working, and then they kind of give up on it. So this, again, is all part of this discussion around, well, what is the process? And So that's that part of the diagram.
Okay,
And then,
Brian, I'm
yes,
just going to actually just make a comment for you because I've been through this myself. Is I sit close to the mic and I start making noise and I can't hear from the other end that it's noisy. So Troy Davison, he says here from Pennsylvania. So he says, Brian, the sound of your hand hitting the table makes a lower vibration, so it's pretty loud in the mic. So he's like keeping your hands up high. So
okay. Thank
yeah,
you very much.
I've done that before where I've had a bracelet on and it's like bang, 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 and I didn't notice it. So thank you for that, Troy. We appreciate that. Okay, Brian,
Yes.
continue.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep.
So on the right side of the diagram, what we have there is a bit of a picture that shows at the top, you can see at the top, the red circle is our desire.
Mhm.
It's not in our hand, but it's in our mind. And it's something that we want. We know why we want it. It feels good to have it. So that along the top is your high vibration area. And then down below is lower vibrations. And so when we want something in our life, we want it because it feels good in the having of it. I could say to you now, close your eyes and just sort of clear your mind for a moment of everything and just think of something that you would want to have in your life and just how it would feel. See yourself in that picture. And just for a moment, experience the feeling of it. And that's the high vibration, right? The feeling. But yet that experience that you want, it's in your mind, it's not in your hand. And you say, well, how's that going to help me? Well, here's how it works. So let's start to piece this together here.
Okay.
There's three to this process. Life itself, there's three pieces. I mean, as you live life, you experience things, and in the experience, you sometimes think, well, I don't like that, and I don't want this, and that's not good. And that's a good natural part of living, because in that process, you can get more clear about what you want. And in the moment when something happens that you don't like, whether you're aware of it or not, you're kind of saying to yourself, wouldn't it be nice if, and then you kind of fill that sentence in. Or even if you say, boy, I wish something was like this. And that's that moment where you sort of send that request out there. That literally goes out into the universe, because that's something that's in your heart. It's something that you feel. And it's the feeling, it's the vibration that sets it up. So then the universe says, okay, I got that request. Now I'm going to go to work and I'm going to put everything together so that this can come into your life. So that's all taken care of, and we don't really even have to do anything for those two things to happen. And then there's the third piece, which is the process that allows that to come into your life. And so that's the part that we need to work on, because we have the feeling of the desire. And so it's like when the universe goes to work, it's like that's like you can think of a radio station. So all of a sudden that frequency of your desire, let's call it 101.5. Now your job is to raise your frequency to that 101.5, and that would be, let's call it happiness, let's call it appreciation, let's call it joy. And once you achieve that frequency throughout your day, then things start to happen. You start to meet people. You find yourself in situations that lead you to connect and eventually realize that desire. It's no longer just in your mind, it's in your hand.
Oh, I love that.
So let's look at this diagram and it would be all easy. This would be all easy if we sort of just started from the beginning and we knew about the law of vibration and attraction, and we we knew about how to use our natural faculties of awareness, of choice, mental will, perception, and imagination. I would only be talking probably about that top piece of the diagram, but when we sort of grow up, we take on these things called beliefs, which you see sort of in the middle of the diagram. And so the beliefs are the things that introduce to us a perception on how we look at things. So we might see a car and we might say, oh boy, that's the car for me. And for a moment, you see yourself in that car driving down the street and it feels good. And then the next thing we know, we're saying to ourselves, well, where's the money going to come from?
Yep.
Or are my friends going to like this? Is my family going to approve of this? And, all these kinds of thoughts start to come in. But if we would just stop right there. I like that car. That car feels good. And just leave it right there. But we think, okay, I got to do something to get this car. We don't think about the law of attraction so much. We don't think about the universe as orchestrating things for us. We think, well, I got to work more hours. I got to make more money. If this is going to happen, I got to do it. And we kind of cut the universe almost out of the picture.
Brian, I did one of my Hangout show about that. I wanted a new car, and I had my list, the things I wanted, the things I didn't want. Guess what? I didn't get clear enough about the things I didn't want, and I got both. And it came to me, a total surprise, my son. He got me the car as a Mother's Day present. So, so if I had been saying, oh, I don't have the money for this, I don't have the money for that, I didn't. I just said, my next car is going to have this and this, but I don't want that. And you know what? I got the things I didn't want plus the things I did want. And I thought, here's what I thought, Brian, and everybody watching. I thought, oh my gosh, if I had known it was going to be that easy, I would have really been more clear on what I wanted.
Yes, absolutely, Penny. Great example of how this works. And here's the thing about it too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we all really want to work on filling our mind with the things that we want. And so, when something happens, if you're in a job, let's say, and you want a different kind of job, let's say a job that has, let's say you're in a job where you feel that you're not getting cooperation, or you don't have the work hours that you want, or these different things, then you want to really get clear. I mean, as I said earlier, when they happen and you don't like when they happen, you automatically kind of ask the universe. And so when you write it down on paper, what it does, it helps you to get that feeling. It helps you to really know what you don't like about it and be very clear about what you do want. And then you can make that your focus. And here's something that's really important to the formula as well. You have this written down, this ideal, let's call it your ideal job. But you can't spend all day thinking about that ideal job, obviously. I mean, that job as it is, as you've written it, it feels great. In your mind, it feels great. And to be in that experience would be a great feeling. But you got to go get groceries. You got to fill your gas with car, or your car with gas. You've got to, if you have kids, you got to work with your kids, spouse, all kinds of things are going on in your life, all kinds of dynamics. So, you can't just sit in a chair and think about this new job all day long. You've got to continue to live your life. Mm-hmm. And so, if we go back to the diagram here and we look at the emotional scale, and we said, well, that new job is up at a high vibration. When I think about it, and I see myself in it, I feel joy, I feel happiness, I feel a sense of satisfaction. But then through our day, a lot of times, we're in our job that we have that we don't like, and we might be thinking about what is going on in our job, and we might experience some of these vibrations, if you look down at the list of emotions, we might feel blame for something. We might feel discouragement. You know, oh, am I ever going to get out of here? Is this new job ever going to come? You know, and so if you look at the chart of emotions, if you take even discouragement, for example, and you follow over horizontally, you can see that you are at a vibration level that's not equal to the frequency of the job that you want.
Mm.
And so earlier I said, well, think of that job, that thing that you want is frequency 101.5. Well, you want that, but you're at frequency 89.2. They don't match. Those frequencies don't match. And so the attraction can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do attract is the story that you're talking about. You're talking about, I don't like my job. I don't like this about my job. I don't like that about my job. And so, Penny, I believe you mentioned that earlier, it just becomes a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
90%, I think you mentioned the number, 90% of our thoughts are not the thoughts about the thing that we want. It's about the thing that we have that we don't want. And that keeps us at a frequency that is not the same frequency of the thing that we want. And so in a lot of cases, now if you look at the right part of the diagram, you'll see a dotted line pointing up to the blue dot, and you'll see a little circle with a line through it, meaning you can't take that path. That's not a path you can take. A lot of times we want to, we just want the thing and we want it now. And then when we think about it, we think of the absence of it, then again, it can take us to a place of discouragement or doubt or disappointment. And so we need some tools. We need to talk a little differently to ourselves. We need to tell ourselves a different story. And so when we're in that job, we could even focus on our chair. Maybe we have a really comfortable chair where we work, and we love that chair. And so if we could just think of that chair, for example, and think of how much that all of a sudden starts to move our vibration up. But it takes us up to a more general place. We're not really thinking about that job we want. We're thinking about something about the job we have that's a positive aspect, something that we can appreciate. We say, hey, this pays my bills. This job pays my bills. That's a great thing. That feels good. It feels good to know that at the end of the week, I can go to the grocery store. That gives me a good feeling.
Yeah.
And so we need to sometimes not think so much about the thing that we want if it's going to cause us a lower vibration, because the universe already knows what you want. You don't got to keep telling the universe. It's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and you sit down and you order a meal. Well, that's your request. The meal request, you make it. But you don't go in the kitchen and start helping the chef cook the food and everything. You sit at the table and you have a conversation, probably a pleasant conversation with the people that you're with, or you admire the scenery, let's say, and you just let the process happen, and then all of a sudden this completed meal is at your table. And so this is the process of attraction as well, that you put that request out, and then things are taken care of by the universe, and then it connects.
So,
sorry, go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question for somebody that might be watching and thinking that right now, maybe they're on the lower end of the scale where they're in some fear, or they're depressed about something, or maybe they're like really, really like they have revenge or hatred in there for whatever reason. So what can you say to help them? Because, to go from here to here is a little bit of a stretch, right? We need to go through that process. What would be something that you could say to somebody that maybe is experiencing this right now to make them feel better, to go up the scale a little bit, maybe then to get to disappointment? Because if you're experiencing anger and then you're up to disappointment, well, that's farther up on the scale to the higher vibration, which is a good thing. So if you're feeling disappointed, it's actually a good thing when you compare it to anger and hatred and jealousy. So So what's something you could actually help somebody with to help them raise themselves up the level of the scale when they're maybe in a place where they really don't see how they can do that?
Well, again, Penny, there's many tools in my book. You know, each week there's a series of exercises and tools, and in fact, you build a toolbox over 20 weeks. And you know, when you find yourself in a low frequency emotion, these tools help to help you to focus on something different that feels good. So again, you can focus on something more general, or you can find a positive aspect. You could sit down and list, okay, what's positive about this situation? Something that doesn't give you resistance, because if you think, okay, I have this condition where I work and it just drives me crazy, it annoys me. And so every time you think about it, well, then you're going to feel annoyed and you're going to keep yourself down. So you want to replace that with either a new perspective on that thing, look at it from a different angle. Perspective is really important in this, because think of a tree and there's 360 degrees around a tree. Now, if we look at something and we think about it in a certain way, then and then it produces emotion because of the way we're thinking about it. Well, every time we think from that perspective, we're going to get that same emotion.
Yeah.
So we can walk around that tree and we can look at it from a different angle, right? We can see something new about it. Just like I said before, you can say about the job, well, it pays the bill. So instead of thinking about the job and the long hours, for example, you can think, well, it pays my bills. That feels better than it's long hours. You see, now all of a sudden, you've picked a better feeling thought.
Mm-hmm.
And a little exercise I get people to do as well is, here, a great statement I find very powerful is, it feels good to think about.
Oh, I love that. Repeat that, Brian.
The statement is, it feels good to think about. And so you collect a list of things, and this is the beauty about the program in my book, is that when you're in the middle of a low vibration emotion, something just happened, just kind of triggered you, and now all of a sudden you're feeling this anger, this jealousy, this whatever. It's a real challenge to put yourself in a better feeling place in the middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you build this toolbox, it gives you a place to go. It gives you, because you can say, well, clear your mind, stop thinking about that. But unless you have something else to think about, you're going to keep thinking about it. So if I say, don't think of a pink elephant, you're thinking of a pink elephant.
Yep.
And if I say, stop thinking about a pink elephant, you're still thinking about a pink elephant.
Yeah.
But if I say, think of a brown elephant, now you can think of a brown elephant. So you got to have something to take your mind to when you're aware of, okay, I am on the scale. I'm aware that I'm feeling negative. Now, where on the scale am I? Okay, I'm all the way down to, let's say, anger. So that's okay. It's okay. It's just telling me, and I think you mentioned this in the first of the program, that it's okay. Let yourself feel that emotion. Emotions are your guidance system. There's nothing wrong with them. It's okay. They're just telling you that your perspective, the way you're thinking about something, is a way. It's a frequency that's different than the thing that you want. So then it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to reach for something better. I'm going to reach for something higher than anger. So then you can say, well, it feels good to think about. And you know, the beauty about that statement, the real magic about that statement is, it doesn't take any money. You don't have to do anything. You can just go in your mind, and maybe you like fishing. It feels good to think about fishing, right? It's just a distraction to take you to a good feeling place. now you have a little bit of a pause. You've kind of slowed things down a bit here. And now you have a bit of a clearer mind. And now you can start to think. And as you think more positively, of course, the law of attraction brings you back more thoughts that feel better. And so all of a sudden you find yourself, you're moving up the scale. You're moving up to frustration. And then you're moving up to hopefulness. And then the next thing you know, you're jumping up into that high vibration.
Mm.
So a big reason that we don't find ourselves getting the thing that we want is because it's there. It's all around us. It's like a radio in your home. You can probably dial into hundreds of stations, but the only one you hear is the one that you're dialed into. And so if you're telling the story, if you don't like your job, going back to that example, and you go off and tell your family and your friends about this job that you have that you don't like, well, now you're holding yourself in a frequency on the station and the story that's not equal to what you want. So you've got to keep that story and the energy of that story. You might not tell that story. You might not, like I say, go around chanting. And that's what I meant to say in that restaurant example is once you order the meal, it's gone and it's going to come back. You don't keep calling the waiter over and saying, waiter, I ordered this.
I want the chicken, I want the chicken, I want the chicken.
Yeah, you don't do that. And you don't have to do that with the law of attraction either. All you have to do once you have felt that desire, right? And it is helpful to write that down because now you're very clear on it. And that's actually another tool as well when you're feeling negative that you can, that's a good feeling place. That ideal job is another good feeling place. So that can be a tool.
Brian, we again, our time is just like flown by. So, so is there one key thing that you'd like to point out using this diagram before we wrap up, and then we'll bring you back on so people can see your handsome face again before we close the show?
It does go so fast. I guess, Penny, what I would say is, emotions are okay. When they're negative, they're just telling you that what you're thinking is keeping you away from what you really want, because what you want is a high vibration. So even if you do one step, just raise your awareness and be more aware, track yourself for a week and raise your awareness about how you're feeling. Be aware of when you're feeling negative, and then make a shift to reach a little higher and a little higher. If you're in anger, you may not make it to joy, and you probably won't make it to joy in one step. But cut yourself some slack and start to talk to yourself about things. Make yourself some positive lists. Things that feel good, things that you can do, things that you can listen to, whatever, and work your way up so that you're feeling good. And then get to that level of that frequency of that thing that you want, and then have the patience and the trust to allow and to know that the law of attraction is working for you, and it's going to set you up with circumstances that's going to bring you together with that desire.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian. So I'll let you stop the screen share, and then we'll come back to you for your final words. And I just want to make a comment when we're talking about the emotions, positive and negative. Maybe because we do want to get to better feeling thoughts. We want to get to better feeling words. We want to get to a better feeling place. So rather than label our emotions, maybe just, like Brian said, a key word, and I say this with everything, is awareness. Just be aware that you're having this mood or this feeling or this emotion without having to label it. Because once we label it, sometimes then it just seems like it's compounded. So it's like, yeah, this is what I'm feeling today. And acknowledge it. And just like, what would it feel like or what would it feel like? I love that. I love that. So thank you. You're watching episode 77 of the Hangout with Penny Show, and this was part 2 of the process of attraction with Brian Withers. And because we need to wrap up, it is already 10 past our time. I'm going to bring Brian back out for his final words. Brian?
Hello there. Yeah, so just going back to that diagram, I mean, it just shows you again that your objective really um, is to keep your vibration at a higher level throughout your day, no matter what you're doing. You need to find a way to maintain a high vibration, a positive perspective, and that is what allows all of your dreams and desires to find you.
Oh, Brian, thank you. Thank you. And for my final words, what I've learned personally from my journey, because I was like on the other end of that scale for a long time. It seemed like a long time and I was going through it. And when I began moving up the scale, up the scale, up the scale, up the scale, my life just seemed to change in a way that it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I had that dream car or that dream home. It was it was the state of being that I was living in now that was so, it felt fulfilled. The rest is just bonus. That's what I feel. So when that perfect guy comes in or that perfect girl or that perfect car, you're already at that contentment. You're already at that joy. So that's just an enhancement. And I don't know if I'm rambling or not. Did that make sense, Brian?
No, that's a great concept, Penny, and it's that whole idea of being at peace where you are.
Yeah.
That's a huge concept, and that's what you're saying is, it's that the feeling has got to be enough to allow the manifestation of the thing. But once it gets there, it's just the feeling, which you've been carrying anyway. So being at peace where you are is a very important concept.
Yeah. And enjoy the journey along the way. Because like Brian said earlier, to have to have that car, well, maybe the car's a little different, but maybe it's that ideal partner that you want. So one minute you don't have that person, next minute you do. Well, the journey along the way can be so much fun. Like you got to meet, you got to date, so all that is building up. So it's just enjoy the journey along the way. Feel what you need to feel, and then move yourself up. And hey, life, we're here to learn. And if I can help in some way to bring people on like Brian to help you, whether it's his book and going through the 20 weeks or just understanding the emotional scale a little bit better, then we've done our part to help raise the vibration. So that's all I wanted to say, everybody. Thank you very much. This has been episode 77 of the Hangout with Penny Show, and we will see you next Friday. So Brian, say goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks for being with me, Brian. I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Troy, thank you very much. Everybody, we will see you next week. So take care. Bye for now.